Hello, everybody. It is Tuesday, the 16th of March, 2021. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. And March is, gosh, it's hard to believe March is already halfway over. It's just absolutely amazing to me. I'm going to give it a couple minutes. My wife is joining. She's going to share this on our Sealy Guy page. Today, we're going to talk about language. This is such an involved topic, and I'm really excited. I'm going to do my best to try to cover this in about 17, 18 minutes. But I could literally talk for 2 hours on language alone. So we'll give it a couple minutes for a couple people to join in. And if nobody does, that's okay. I'm still going to talk and we'll still have a good time. And then maybe you're watching it on the replay. So if you are watching it on the replay, definitely let me know that. Put a hashtag replay in there if you would. That would be wonderful. If you're watching it live, hashtag live. That's always helpful too. And we're going to talk about language. And so what does language mean to you? All right. Language is very, very involved. When I wrote my book, Discovering Your Authentic Truth, originally my chapter on language was 17,000 words. All right. 17,000 words. Each one of the chapters in this book is about 3,000 words, right? So I had to somehow figure out how to condense $17,000. I'm always thinking money. 17,000 words down into one chapter of about 3,000 words, and I just couldn't do it. So what I did is I put it into two chapters. Chapters 17 and 18 in this book deal strictly with language. It's starting to open you up to ideas and try to understand how in depth language truly is. So that's what you got in my book. So the first one, the first question I've got for you right now is how much does the spoken word register as far as overall communication? Any guesses? I see we got a couple of people joining us, so that's great. Whoops. Whoa, I don't know what just happened there. Okay, I'll stop messing around with my computer. And anyhow, who's ever joined us, welcome. I can't see you, but I'm very happy you're on. And so anyhow, the very first question I got for you is how much does the spoken word register in the overall process of communication? And some of you may have heard of this before, but the spoken word is very small when it comes to the overall communication process. Any idea what the number one way human beings communicate with each other? It ain't the spoken word. You can have a whole dialogue and never speak a single word, right? And you do it all with body language, right? You got this, you got this, you got this. You got all kinds of body language that you can throw out there. So hi Don, good to see you on here. So body language is the number one. In fact, it comprises 55%, over half of our language when we're communicating with somebody comes from our body language. And then guess what's number two? It ain't spoken word yet. We ain't there yet. Any ideas? Guesses? It's your tonality. So your tonality is about 38% of your communication skills. So I'm talking about like this. I got body language, I got tonality, and then I've also got the spoken word. I can say, oh my God, this is such a great day. I've got tonality, I've got body language, tonality, and then the spoken word. So the spoken word, the verbal part of communication in the realms of neurolinguistics program is only 7% of the overall communicative process. So 55% from the body language, 38% tonality, 7% verbal. Why is that important? It's extremely important to understand that, because here's the deal. We all have our own individual maps of the world. We all see the world differently, and we all interpret things differently. And many times when you start getting into the deeper levels of language, you have what's called surface, and then you have the deeper construct. And the deeper construct is usually coming from deep within the subconscious mind. We're not conscious of it. All right. That's a lot of times our body language. All right. Body language is going to include, I got it written down here because I can't remember them all. But let me see, where did I write? Oh, body language can include the flushing of the face, the swelling or diminishing of the lower lip size, believe it or not. Also your rate and depth of breathing, Also your eye and body movements. Those are just some examples, all right? And get this, whether you realize it or not, your subconscious mind is registering within your subconscious mind. So in your own map of the world, when you're having a communication with somebody, you may interpret their body language in one way where they didn't really mean to express it that way, but it's the way that you interpreted it. So having awareness about your own map is very, very important, but that's not what this live is about. All right, but it's a necessary thing to talk about because it is very important to understand that no two people see the world exactly the same way. Now, as we surface language is very easy to understand. That's just the actual communication with people, and you're having a communication, a dialogue back and forth. But the deeper meaning gets into how you're actually programmed in the mind. All right. So when you're programming within your subconscious mind, it's going to come out in your language and how you express yourself. Just like some people, I was a pilot, right? You'd watch people walk through the airport. It was one of the things I love to do to waste time. But I love watching people. Or you go to the mall and you watch people walking around. You'll see some people have a fairly fast gait. Some people have a very sluggish gait. All right, that's body language. That's communication. And then a lot of people are somewhere in between. Well, the same thing happens with our speech. The rate of the speech, the tonality of the speech, all that is figuring into our language when we're communicating with somebody. And probably when we start, the very first thing we're going to start working at when we start going into the deeper structure of sentence structure or your language, your communication skills, is going to be what we call modalities. And this goes back into that map of the world issue. All right. So modalities refers to what is your primary way that you communicate? And there's basically four. There's more modalities than that. But when we're talking about language and communication, there's basically 4 different types of modalities. And that's being kinesthetic, touchy-feely. All right. And then there's auditory, hearing. And then there's visual, eyes. And then there's audio digital, which is more process orientated, more like a checklist type of thing. And those are the 4 primary modalities. So whether you realize it or not, one of those is dominant for you. Now, when you're dealing with somebody in communication, it's very advantageous to understand the other person's map, the other person's primary modality. So if somebody is using all kinds of touchy-feely words, even though you're audio digital process orientated, you want to try to reflect and start using words that are touchy-feely, because that's going to build rapport. That person's going to be, your language is going to start registering with that person more. Same thing with mirror and matching their body language goes into the same thing. If somebody's kind of sitting like this, you don't make it obvious, but you kind of reflect the way that they're sitting. If they're slouched back like this, you just take it more relaxed. If they're intense like this, you kind of take a little bit more intense approach. It's called mirror matching. It's very important in this communication skills. All right. So what would you suggest, or what would you surmise is your primary modality? Go ahead and put that in the comments. Again, let us know if you're watching live or the replay. I see we've got more and more people joining. That's awesome. I love it. Give me some hearts and likes if I say something that you really like as well. So what's your primary modality? Are you a touchy-feely type of person? Auditory, visual, audio digital, all right, which is process. So if I say things like, man, I hear what you're saying, and that just came out. I wasn't thinking about trying to say that, but in the course of a conversation, man, I hear what you're saying, Elka. Man, that makes that just resonates. That sounds so good to me. Well, now you start picking up on those words, and you know that person's primary modality could possibly be auditory. So you want to start using those types of words in your language and communication back with them. What about if I see exactly what you're saying? Man, I can envision the future with you, or whatever it is, but they're using more visual types of cues. Boy, look at that beautiful scenery, right? So then the person's more visual. If a person says, well, I need to go do this, this, and this, and that, then they're audio digital or process oriented. If they say, man, I just love the way you make me feel. Man, you make me feel alive. All right, then they're kind of kinesthetic. So modalities, understanding a person's modalities and language is really important. And that's coming out in both body language, tonality. It's coming out in all 3 ways, right? The body language is 55% of communication. Tonality, which is 38% communication, and in your language, your actual verbal, which is only about 7% of the actual story of the communication that's going on. And now, where it gets really interesting is we start talking about deletions, distortions, and generalizations. And if you want to talk about what's the number one communication breakdown in relationships, in business dealings, in what may be another, how about education, communication from the teacher to the student, or student back to the teacher, parenting, are these what I call DDGs, or deletions, distortions, and generalizations. And we all do it. And one of the ways we do it is we mind read. So I say something with a very general tone to it. Maybe I say something like, isn't it great that it's snowing outside right now? Which it is. That means fresh powder tomorrow morning here in Colorado. I'm so excited. Okay, so isn't it wonderful that it's snowing outside? And well, that might land in your map because you're a beach person. You hate snow. I'm trying to give a really light conversation. All of a sudden, you're not offended, but you're kind of taken aback. No, I don't like snow. Why would I like snow? Well, there's a deletion, distortion, and actually a generalization in that statement. Hey, I love snow. Isn't it great that it's snowing outside? Maybe I needed to add, and so happy that it's snowing outside because tomorrow I'm going to have free or fresh powder to go skiing. It's just wonderful. All right. So now I just made it a little bit more specific to what I was inclined to say. I should have had maybe a better example for that. But when you're doing meta modeling, what you're doing is you're trying to get into that deeper structure of their language. What do they really mean? What's their intent behind what they're saying? Getting down more and more specifics as to what the meaning of what they're trying to convey to you. Because remember, they're coming from their map of the world. Not only that, to complicate matters, they're coming with their modality. So if they're a kinesthetic person, they're touchy-feely, and you're a audio-digital person, for instance, very process-orientated, that already is going to start a communication barrier that you're going to have to work through because you're just not going to get it, what they're saying, and vice versa. They're not going to understand you either because they're touchy-feely and you're being very process-oriented. They're going to think you're boring, right? So it's all that's happening at once. So can you understand why there's so many challenges with relationships and communication? I mean, not only do you have these deletions, distortions, and generalizations going on, you also got intermixing of different modalities going on. So meta modeling, what that does is it allows you to get into the deeper structure of the language and what's really going on deep in the subconscious mind. So let me give you an example. I talk about this in the book as well. I got two examples in the book in chapter 17. I'm only going to cover one of them here. But this book goes into great depths in everything that I'm talking about now. Like I said, 17,000 words of content that I had to shrink down to about 6,000 words in 2 chapters. Like I said, I could talk about this for hours. Anyhow, so the first example I got on this is a gentleman. They were doing an experiment. Okay, these guys that created NLP basically, they were doing an experiment, and they wanted to prove that we are coded in how we structure our language. Our language is structured and it's coded in our minds. There's an infinite way to see the world, but there's only a few ways that we code this information in our mind, and then we convey that out. And this meta model process was their way of proving that it was structured. This has never been done. It had never been done in therapy before. And they're not saying that this is the only way to do the therapy, but it's a tool in the shed to help a person that may be stuck with a problem. All right. So meta modeling is very easy to do, and it's basically asking the questions who, what, how, which, and when. So you don't ask why. In fact, I pulled this up because I was just watching an amazing YouTube interview with this author, Chris Voss. And I'm like, man, I got that guy's book. He was an FBI negotiator for hostage situations. Okay. And he did this for many, many years. I can't remember, it was a couple decades. And now he's on the speaking tour and book tour, and he holds classes on how to negotiate your way into, a successful side of a negotiation in business. All right. But in this interview that I watched in yesterday, was he never used the word why when you're in a conversation with somebody, because it immediately puts them on the defensive, unless that's your intent. And he goes into that, and I don't have time to go into all that stuff, right? But if I say, hey, why are you wearing those shoes? Boom, immediately the ego goes into a full-blown force and is like, what are you talking about, right? So we stay away from why. Why also will tend to put you into that victim mode. Remember, you got to be either at cause or in effect, all right? You can't be in two at once. And cause is when you're problem solving and moving your life forward. When you're in effect, you're finding reasons and excuses to justify where you're at. And you can never solve a problem while you're in effect. So we always want to be at cause. When you ask a person a question why, it puts them on the defensive, and you tend to get the reasons and excuses, so we stay away from that. All right? So we ask a person a who, what, how, which, when type of question. Well, in this example that I have in the book and that they were utilizing to prove that the meta model World 8 works and that we are actually programmed in our structure in the deep subconscious mind, they use this student, and he says that I don't know how to make a good impression. Now think about the deletions, distortions, and generalizations in that statement. What the heck is he talking about? Don't know how to make a good impression with your boss, with your teacher, with your girlfriend, with your family, with yourself, when you're out in public. What does making a good impression really mean, right? So they have a total of 93 exchanges between this teenager or this student and the therapist. On the 47th exchange, of basically asking him questions is what I mean, right? So on the 47th question, it comes out of this student that a girl doesn't notice him. He sees this new girl on campus, she's cute and everything else, but he doesn't believe that she notices him. So I don't know how to make a good impression was fueled by a girl. He doesn't believe that a new girl on campus is noticing him that he really likes. Okay. Now, after several more of these questions go on, it comes out that he's the deeper structure of all this is that his mother didn't recognize his efforts as he's growing up, or at least that's his map of the world, right? The way he interpreted it, his mother didn't recognize his efforts. So that was fueling that this girl's not going to notice him, which led to the initial statement of, I don't know how to make a good impression. Well, on the 93rd exchange of these questions going on, this student was awakened to the new possibilities on how to approach this new girl on campus that he found very attractive. All done just by the meta model or asking who, what, how, which, when type of questions. All the answers are inside of you already. What this type of understanding and language does is to help you unlock it and bring it from the deep substructure of your mind into your conscious mind and go, oh, wow, that's pretty simple. Now I see it. Have you ever known somebody that's so stuck in a problem? You just want to shake them, right? Because you can see the answer so clearly. And yet they can't. Abusive relationship, bad boyfriend, bad girlfriend, money issues, whatever it may be. They can't see it because they're stuck in their own problem. But the meta model, helping a person see the deeper structure of their language and how they're coded, can unleash the answers within them. All right? It's very, very powerful. How am I doing on time? Oh, my gosh. It's like I said, I could talk hours on this. One last thing I do want to cover real quick is listening. Are you a good listener? So how much does the spoken word register? We already covered that, 7%. Are you a good listener? Many people feel they are a good listener. I will tell you, in my experience, 99% of the people are horrible listeners. Most of us, the vast majority, are horrible listeners. And believe me, it takes conscious effort and exercise to be a good listener. And I still find myself times where I want to talk more than listen. All right. Listening is so, so important. Now think about this. If physiology makes up over half of our total communication that's going on between you and another person, over half is physiological, all right, your body language, wouldn't it make sense that we got some training on understanding not only our own body language, but also that of others, to to become a better communicator? All right, I posed a question earlier this week because I was just kind of curious to see how people would answer it. I got some great answers, basically what makes a poor communicator from a great communicator. But the number one thing is body language. It truly is. And that's going to build rapport. All right, and then your tonality, and then your actual words that you speak. So studying nonverbal communication would be huge. I wish we taught it in high schools. It will help you in business. It'll help you in your relationships. It'll help you with your kids, or your kids with your parents, whoever may be watching this. So with that being said, I'm going to close it out. I did have one more. How can you become better aware of the DDGs, your deletions, distortions, and generalizations that you're already using that creates communication challenges? How can you become more aware of that? And how would such improvement in that area help your overall communication success? So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Thank you so much for joining in. We'll do another live here on Thursday. Until then, enjoy the beach, enjoy the snow. I'll be skiing powder tomorrow. Okay, okay. Have a great night. Bye-bye.